Welcome, ladies and gents. It's that time where I go through and rate each and every one of the drivers and how they got on over the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, and my predictions review, which has been a bit of a stinker. And as always, we start with the number one race winner, Max Verstappen. And all the talk now is he back in with a championship chance? 69 points behind Oscar Piastri, 44 behind Lando Norris. So if I was Lando Norris, I'd be a little bit more concerned than Oscar Piastri. 7 races to go. He needs just short of 10 points a race to be gained on Oscar Piastri, and if Max wins, Oscar's third in every single race from here to the end. Max wins the championship, which is not going to happen, but it's good to talk about it. It adds a little bit of spice to the whole race weekend to get that outsider, because it's all in onto the inside of what was just looked like a McLaren battle, and they were just doing strange stuff, wasn't it, with this whole papaya rule things, and that might just go up in smoke because it looks like could Verstappen come in and sneak a championship where they're trying to be too nice to each other and not ruthless enough to just go and take this Drivers' World Championship, which looks all the world, and it's set to go into the hands of one of the McLaren drivers. But Max, being Max, has been absolutely phenomenal. A grand slam this weekend, so that's pole position, led every single lap and got the fastest lap and took the win. It's 6 he's done now. I think that's one more than Lewis Hamilton. He's been absolutely phenomenal. This car looks back on track, but Singapore is the next big one, because that's where we've seen Red Bull in the last previous years really struggle, and so if they've got on top of this car, we should see a better showing in Singapore. So that's going to be the big, the acid test. Is Singapore, can he produce a solid podium, second, even to a surprise win? Who knows? But for this weekend, he just did everything right. A great lap for pole position. Didn't have to be spectacular, but he did absolutely enough to take that pole position off Carlos Sainz. And from on the race, he just controlled it beautifully. Led away from Carlos Sainz. Got about a 30-second gap, pit comfortably, and he's given himself, I think, about a 20% chance of winning this Drivers' Championship, which is pretty good odds considering where he was at the start of the last couple of races. Monza and Azerbaijan have been massive for him, especially with Oscar's DNF, and he's taken maximum points. And he'll just keep chipping away like a great champion that he is, and he'll never give up. So it'll be interesting to see how it falls in the end. But I've given him a 10 out of 10. Second place man, George Russell, and he's been really untalked about for this a really underrated drive, I think, because of the good stories that have come in behind, which we'll get on to. But he had a solid drive. He started in 5th, so not the best qualifying session, and to get himself up into second place, a really good drive on the overcut. He went for the hards first and then the mediums, and that was the strategy that looked like really worked and was the difference between going medium hards, because the hards looked like they needed a lap or two at least to get into the operating window and to pull off the laps for that to work. So strategy-wise, that really worked, and then from there on he just controlled it home, and it's such a good drive. He made up 3 places. Yes, he made up places against Lawson and Williams. You kind of expect that the Mercedes should be faster than the 2, but this guy was going to pull out of the Grand Prix on Friday. He was that unwell, and he said if it was Singapore, there's no chance because of the conditions, but because it was cooler in Baku, it gave him half a chance, and he pulled off quite an incredible job, actually, because it's just sort of gone under the radar. We've seen faster cars behind, Lando Norris example, the Ferraris, we thought they'd make more progress than they did. Really struggled to get past slower cars, and so George has managed that, made up 3 places, and a really, really good second place for him. I've given him a 10 out of 10. Third place man, Carlos Sainz, and how good is it to say that and see him up there? He's had a really horrible race week season so far. I'm not going to say race weekend because it was a really good race weekend this weekend, but his season hasn't really gone as he's planned. Come under a bit of pressure as say, is he as really good as he maybe thinks he is, and all the the surroundings that go around him, but he's pulled off and produced an absolutely fantastic weekend. It was about time. I think there were races where he should have done much better than he is, clearly, but there was, where the car's gone and should have done well. They've just not maximised the opportunity, but this weekend, boy did he do that. A brilliant lap that could and should have potentially taken it on pole position. The strange weather conditions in Q3 really helped him, but there was plenty of red flags and stoppages in that session for it to all change, and we've seen Max go off and pull a lap 4 tenths ahead of Carlos Sainz. So there were cars out there that potentially should and could have ended up ahead of him, but they didn't. So it shows he actually did pull off a pretty solid lap when it counted, and it's easily done where you can be a little bit too cautious just to get that banker in, but he produced a quite fantastic lap in Q3 to get onto that P2 position from qualifying. So it was a great start from there, and then we were all expecting, well, me at least was sort of expecting to just be under pressure looking back from the start, but that Williams had really good pace, kept within 2-3 seconds of Max Verstappen for at least the first 10 laps. From there onwards, though, Verstappen sort of eked out his advantage over Carlos, and I think they were kind of looking to engage with George Russell, but Russell's pace later on the hards really worked in his favour. Carlos went with the opposite strategy with the mediums and then to the hards, and like I said, just that tyre warm-up going from the hards onto the mediums, from the mediums going onto the hards, the tyre warm-up just wasn't there, and we were talking there was actually negative deg, so when they went on the hards it was just getting faster and faster and faster, as we've seen with Max Verstappen and George Russell, and that's why the hard tyre was really the tyre to be on. But it was a really well executed race from him and the Williams outfit, 0 mistakes, so good to see him on the podium, and the fact that he's pulled off a podium going from Ferrari to Williams before Lewis Hamilton has in the Ferrari would be a massive surprise. The odds on that would have been phenomenal at the start of the season if you were brave enough to pull that out the bag, but absolutely brilliant to see. It's on the level of sort of Nico Hulkenberg and his podium. Such a great job. So good to see him up there for him and the Williams outfit, because they've kind of deserved it. They've done a fantastic job, the Williams outfit this season, and so I've given Carlos Sainz, no surprise, a 10 out of 10. Fourth place man, Kimi Antonelli, and he got his gloves out early doors, didn't he, on the safety car restart with George Russell. Nearly just binned him into the wall when he tried that move around the outside. George probably should have known better. He kind of always going to come on the radio and cause that drama, but it's always a bit different when it's your teammate. And then early doors, he was all over Liam Lawson. Finally made the pass on him. Probably just took a little bit too long making the pass on him to give him a chance to get onto Carlos Sainz, although once he did in the second stint, he couldn't get quite close enough to within that DRS zone off Carlos Sainz, got to about 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds, just couldn't get any closer than that. But for him, I thought it was a really good, solid weekend. He's coming under a lot of pressure, and just needed just to calm down everything a little bit and just pull off a decent result, and that's absolutely what this is. A top 4 finish, actually very good from him, just behind his teammate George Russell. I think he'd be disappointed that he's been beaten by George, but again, the strategy call was the difference, I think, here. Him on the mediums, George on the hards, and the hards just really went well. But Kimi, you can take massive confidence from this, a really good result. Just needs to sort of build that momentum that we've seen early doors. From here on in, I've given him an 8 out of 10. Fifth place man, Liam Lawson, his career best position in P5. A great qualifying session to put it into P3. And then even in the race, he just drove phenomenally well. Yes, he's dropped 2 places from where he started, but I think he was always going to struggle to keep one of the Mercedes behind, or both of the Mercedes behind, in fact, in the end. But the strategy call that sort of cost him which led the undercut on Antonelli that made that move difficult. But from there on, it looked like he'll struggle to hold on to even that P5. Yuki Tsunoda on fresh tyres in the faster Red Bull, or supposedly faster Red Bull. Much improved Red Bull actually of Yuki Tsunoda, all over the back of him, and he drove fantastically well to keep him back even without any DRS assistant up front. There was no real car close enough front to even get sort of a slipstream assistant as well, so to get that drive and to keep hold of that P5 when he had Yuki Tsunoda and Lando Norris all over the back of him at the end, it was a brilliant drive. Really good to see him pick up some solid points. He was really happy with his weekend. A little bit sort of thinking what ifs, but I think overall you've got to just take it. A P3 and a P5 in the race was much better than where that car would normally be expected to be riding, and they've always been in sort of the bottom end of the points, and he's done it on merit. A really good drive, fantastic defensive driving, the grit and determination that we'd like to see from drivers. He put all of that on display. A fantastic job. I've given him a 9 out of 10. Sixth place man, Yuki Tsunoda, started in 6th, finished in 6th in the end, got up to P5 ahead of Russell but couldn't hold him back early doors, and then was up to P3 ahead of Lando Norris at one point. And then I'm not sure why they didn't pit Yuki Tsunoda earlier. They kind of let him go 1 or 2 laps later, and that gave him that threat of Liam Lawson. When he came out of the pits, he was trying to get his tyre warm up. Lawson attacked and got the position off him, yeah, a bit of an odd call from the Red Bull strategy team on that one. I think they could have helped him out, bring him in that 1 lap earlier. He would have come out a little bit more ahead of Liam Lawson and potentially would have had the tyres to hold Lawson back, and then would have been a comfortable where did he finish? P6 would have been at least a P5 from there, but a really good job from Yuki just to see him back up, back into picking up some solid points. It's where he and the team expect himself to be, but a bit of a breakthrough weekend, because they've said he was saying that he was a lot more confident with this car. Tyre management was a lot better. Yes, there was negative things on the hard, so that kind of all that probably helped him as well. Singapore will be the next big one, but definitely a big step and more confidence in this car, especially his race trim. He said trying to get the tyre management was kind of something he struggled with in races, and the upgrades he's felt really helped him this weekend. So good to see him back in some points. A solid race. I've given him a 7 out of 10. 7th place man, Lando Norris, started there, finished there. The man that should be really grasping all these opportunities. He takes every opportunity to miss an opportunity, doesn't he, at the moment? Lando Norris, yeah, it was an open goal. His championship rival, his teammate, has gone out and crashed, and he's just come home in a lowly 7th, and it wasn't a great race from him at all. He got passed by Isaac Hadjar at the start, a little bit asleep on the safety car restart. He got passed by Charles Leclerc. Fortunately for him, Isaac made a mistake where Leclerc and Norris got past him, but without that mistake, I would not put it past Hadjar to have beaten Norris as well. We talk about unlucky again with a long stop, 4.1. McLaren coming out and saying, yeah, that didn't really affect things. I think it did. I think that 2 seconds would have been the difference of him coming out ahead of the 2 guys he then got stuck behind, on a massive tyre advantage to the guys in front. Couldn't really make the difference. And the car just didn't look as quick. Had they just gone for expecting to be on pole position, and then just managing out at the front and sort of gone for the higher wing setup, because it didn't work. They had no pace, or didn't even feel like he was close enough to get past. I mean, there was a couple of chances where he needed to do a dive bomb on Yuki Tsunoda. It looked like he thought best and just to come home and pick up 6 points. Still points made on Lando Norris, on Oscar Piastri. So that's probably the only positive you can take. He's now 25 points behind Oscar Piastri, so 1 race win in it, 1 DNF, and he wins. They're on equal points. But we've got the clock ticking, and we've got a strong Red Bull, so them wins don't look as as easy to come by now in the next 7 races, so there's going to be a definite fight on the hands. The car has looked average in Italy and now here Baku. They've got one more circuit where they've pinpointed in Las Vegas where it's similar to this, where they've said we're going to struggle there as well. So they're counting on being good at 6 of the next 7 races to hold on to the title fight for him as well, to take that title fight to Oscar Piastri. But yeah, disappointing weekend and a disappointing race for him to start and finish there in what should have been and has been the best car on the grid, but just to make no progress is a little bit disappointing. I've given him a 5 out of 10. 8th place man Lewis Hamilton got up to 9th place early doors, and then in the DRS train of Leclerc and Lando Norris, and then just didn't have the race pace I expected of the Ferraris. He had the better strategy option from Charles Leclerc. He went long on them hards, and then, you know, was going to make the most of them mediums. Got T Moses and got past Leclerc to go and attack the guys up front, but yeah, couldn't really, never got close to making an overtake on them up ahead. And yeah, a difficult race because it looked so promising after practice in the early parts of qualifying as well, and then it just seemed to go away from him and his teammate. So yeah, really disappointing weekend in the end. After showing much promise, he was meant to let Charles Leclerc past on the final lap. Failed attempt at that by 0.4 of a tenths. Charles Leclerc not really making too much deal of it, sort of saying, yeah, it's 8th and 9th place. It doesn't really matter. If it was for sexier positions, I think I would have had a problem, and I think more would have definitely been made of it than it kind of has. But Lewis Hamilton said he'll apologise and it won't happen again. But yeah, average weekend after what looked really promising for Ferrari. Just didn't come to fruition. I've given him a 6 out of 10. 9th place man, his teammate Charles Leclerc, got past Lando Norris and Isaac Hadjar, got himself into P7. Some very good strategy calls. Pit early, but that was probably a bad choice on the mediums because we've seen how long they went. And then he got past and stuck behind Liam Lawson, and that was a real kick in the teeth, and that really put his race to bed after that, because to get up to P7 and to lose 2 places from there, it was just that early pit call on the mediums that just didn't work for him and the team. But the car looked good until qualifying. He binned it, and a difficult race for him as well. Showed some promise, a little bit more, could have been a couple more places, but not, again, like Lewis Hamilton, not a great weekend. And they'll go away sort of disappointed. Can they do better in Singapore, where they have done well in previous years? Let's see how they get on next time. But a 6 out of 10 for Charles Leclerc as well. 10th place man Isaac Hadjar started in 8th, finished in 10th. Not the best race from him. He went really long on his stint, had Kimi Antonelli all over him, couldn't hold him back. And then when he pit, I think it was just before he pit, Lewis Hamilton passed him also. And I think that was the disappointing part of his race weekend, and especially more so because his teammate has done really well. But I think more from Lawson is the fact that he actually qualified really well, still went backwards. Isaac Hadjar started in 8th, would have expected to finish at least around there, but a difficult race for him, but some solid points for the team, a double points finish for the Racing Bulls outfit, so they can be happy with that, but nothing spectacular weekend for Isaac Hadjar, but some points at least, so I've given him a 7 out of 10. Gabriel Bortoleto next up in 11th place, started in 13th, finished 11th, made up 2 places in the end. A difficult one to judge this Sauber outfit on because cars look really promising, but this weekend in the hand of either driver it didn't look spectacular, or points would have been on. He said he got the best out of the car and he's beaten his teammate comfortably again. Comfortably outqualified him, beat him comfortably in the race as well. Gabi Bortoleto sort of showing why he's so highly rated with another solid performance, a great result for what the car had in it. I think it was maximum to finish just out of the points is probably always a little bit disappointing, because you might think points possibly could have been, or our point could have been on the card, but it wasn't. I think he just did the best he could in what the machine he had, and that's all you can ask. So I've given him a 7 out of 10. 12th place man, Ollie Behrman, started in 15th, finished in 12th in the end. He was a little bit disappointed with himself. He lost a couple of places behind the safety car restart to Franco Colapinto and Lance Stroll, and that limited what he could do with the car pace, because he said he was really happy with the car towards the end of the race, but I think that early damage made it difficult to make up any more places than he did, but still made up 3 places from where he started, and after a bad start made a couple of places up there as well. Went really long on the hards, and that helped him make up some good positions. Yeah, again, a bit like Bortoleto did a pretty solid job, but again, I don't think there was enough in that Haas outfit to get into the points this weekend, so I've given him a 7 out of 10. 13th place man, Alex Albon. This is hard, isn't it, because his teammates stuck it on the podium, but it's been a bad weekend for Alex Albon. Q1, the mistake at turn 1, I think it was on his first flying lap to clip the wall, and that ended his qualifying session. And this is not a place you want to start in last place. Yes, you can overtake even when you've got a really good car, but you want to absolutely maximize what you had in this car, and he just never gave himself a chance to do that. Made slow progress early doors, got himself up to lap P17 by lap 15, and then made some decent progress up in the end, got up to P13, but this car had way more in it. The clumsy crash with Franco Colapinto was clearly his fault. He's got a 10-second penalty, and also 2 penalty points, which takes him up to 4 for the season, or 4 in the rolling 12 months. So yeah, a massive regret for him this weekend. Very happy for the team and for Carlos Sainz, but from his own side, it should have been comfortable, solid points at the minimum, and it's not gone well for him when the car has clearly shown some pace. He'll be kicking himself for that. So let's see if he can turn that around in Singapore. But before that, he's had quite a good season. I'm confident he'll get back on track. But yeah, this wasn't one highlight at all. I've given him a 3 out of 10. 14th place man, Esteban Ocon. A bad qualifying session for him, started in 18th. Not a great start to the race, got a big hit by Nico Hülkenberg, but he was saying that thankfully the damage was minimum, just a little bit of the wing, so didn't really cost him too much lap time on that side of things. Went really long on strategy, that got him up into P13, so there was some promise in this car, but a really bad qualifying session meant it's always going to be difficult when you're starting that far back to pick up some points. He put it really early, put on the hards. Like I said, he got himself into P13, went for a strange strategy where you've got no tyres at the end when you pit on lap 1 or 2. To go all the way to the end is always going to be difficult, because when everyone sort of gets some fresher tyres, you are a little bit of a sitting duck. And even if you've got some good pace in the car, you can't really maximise that because your tyres are pretty much gone. So that didn't really work out for him in the end. But to make up 4 places from where he started is pretty decent, so I've given him a 7 out of 10. 15th place man, Fernando Alonso, started in 11th, then he got the jump start. He followed Oscar Piastri, went when he did. Easily done, because they sort of just so trigger happy and looking for any sort of sign of movement, and see one goal. We've seen that numerous times on jump starts. When you make a bigger jump start, as Oscar Piastri did, the guy behind, it's easy to do what Fernando Alonso does. He got a 5-second penalty for that once he pitted. After his penalty, he came out P18, made up a couple of places, but it was a tough weekend for him and the Austin outfit. The car didn't really quite look like it had some points in it, but I don't think there was ever a point where Fernando Alonso thought he'd get points, and that penalty definitely didn't help him at all. A tough weekend. I've given him a 4 out of 10. 16th place man, Nico Hülkenberg, started in 17th, finished in 16th. Not a good weekend for him. He's been comfortably beaten by his junior teammate, rookie teammate, and since the podium, really, his season hasn't really reached any of them heights or the strong points finishes again. He's had poor qualifying sessions, which have just made his races really hard, and it's just compounded things, and doesn't look good at all, does it? He's such a great experienced driver. The podium was such a high. You'd hoped he'd be able to just kick on from that a little bit, but it's almost like he's relaxed a little bit too much. He's like, I've got that podium, and it's a shame to see him have such bad races, and he's been comfortably beaten now in the last couple of races by his junior teammate, so we'd be hoping to put that right next time out in Singapore. A difficult weekend, a 3 out of 10. 17th place man Lance Stroll, and he went for the Hope strategy again. We've seen that didn't work in Monza, and they've tried it again this weekend. Went very long, got himself up into P11, and then when he pit, he finished P17 in the end. He didn't quite have the pace on them fresh tyres to make up any places. Yeah, such a shame. We went for the Hope strategy, hoping for a safety car in the end to get that cheap pit stop. It didn't work in Monza. A 2 out of 10. 18th place man Pierre Gasly started in 19th, finished in 18th in the end. He was comfortably behind his teammate for much of this race week. Got out qualified by him, was pretty much behind him for most of the race. Franco obviously didn't get helped when he got hit by Albon and took a spun. And Pierre Gasly just didn't look like he had anything in him this weekend. He was beaten by Franco Colapinto for much of the race and qualifying, and it's a difficult track, one they just want to look back on. When they go to these power-hungry circuits, we know the Alpine's down on power, but this really did expose him and him this weekend. It's not a good weekend for him. I've given him a 3 out of 10. 19th place man Franco Colapinto, and I think this was quite a decent weekend for him actually. He'd out-qualified his teammate in 16th place. In the race he was behind Fernando Alonso in P13 at one point, and then it's such a shame that he got hit by Alex Albon, spun out, and then he lost a huge amounts of time. And I think he would have beaten Pierre Gasly this weekend, but for that. So he's showing some promise. There's been some show of raw speed. He's been thereabouts with Pierre Gasly. Finished only a couple of seconds behind him in the end. So I think he can go away. I'm probably not happy, but glad he's been beating his teammate, which is where his barometer really is. And we know the fight for that seat is between him and Paul Aron. So let's hope he can pull off stronger performances where he can actually show that, where, you know, it looks a bit more sexy when he's potentially fighting for some points when that happens, and he can beat his teammate there. A difficult weekend to judge really, but I'm giving him a 7 out of 10. On to the DNFs, and it's just the one. Oscar Piastri out on lap 1. And normally when I do that, I just say no rating because he's only done one lap. But the mistakes he's made this weekend have been horrible. In qualifying, in the race, the jump start. It's just, everybody I think is just hoping that for Oscar's sake that he's kind of just got that out of his system. One bad race where everything went wrong, and he just resets, and we see the Oscar that we've seen back in Singapore, because all the talk was this boy doesn't make mistakes, he's cool as a cucumber, and yeah, I'm not sure where that accent came from, but it's just not gone well for him at all. I've given him a 1 out of 10. I've given him a rating because it was that bad of a short half a lap in the race, and qualifying wasn't good either. He'll be hoping for better next time out. On to my predictions review, and for qualifying I had Oscar Piastri to take pole position, Leclerc second, and Verstappen in third place. And I don't think for all the world I would have thought that, well, potentially for Max Verstappen on pole position, but I didn't think I'd see Carlos Sainz in second and Liam Lawson in third place for qualifying. So hats off to them two for getting that up into the P3 and 2 and 3 positions. In the race, I had Oscar to take the win, Leclerc second, and Lando Norris in third place, but it was a masterful drive from Max Verstappen to take the win. George Russell with another solid drive to get himself up into that P2. You can't underestimate him. Pulled off a solid result. And Carlos Sainz with his first podium for Williams is great to see. On to the good. I thought it'd be a good weekend for Williams, and a podium is absolutely out of this world. I think beyond their wildest dreams. I thought it'd be a bad weekend for the V-Carb, and a P5 and a P10 and double point finish is definitely not a bad weekend. And there we have it. On to the next one, Singapore in 2 weeks' time. We've got a week break, and for some reason the break between the last one and Baku just seemed to take for absolute ever. So let's hope this one goes a little bit quicker. Watch out for my making the grid of the Singapore Grand Prix, another one where I'm not expecting in anything spectacular, and hopefully my video of making the grid of Baku and that copyright action from their FIA or Formula One management comes away, and that comes back on line soon. But watch out for the Singapore one, and hopefully there's no copyright issues or infringements on that one, because it's just my gameplay. Strange call, that one. But yeah, not a great prediction, just one right out of well, every yeah, let's forget about this predictions. My predictions were as bad as Oscar Piastri's race. And there we have it. Looking forward to Singapore. Can Max mount a title challenge? That will be the big question next time out, and I'm interested to find the answer. I can't wait for the action to get going again. See you on the next one.